Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and television discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Koufax.
You're the song they play outside a hostage crisis to keep the criminals from thinking clearly.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and yes, I am become Death, the destroyer of worlds.
And we would like to have our worlds destroyed by watching Legion Season 2. We were kind of distraught a little bit thinking of worlds destroyed because one of our listeners had actually mentioned to us, hey, dum-dums, Legion Season 3 is about to come out, and you guys only did the first 2 episodes. And we were like, oh, crap, that's right. We have way too many things to do on this show. But we do those things thanks to the people that support our show over at patreon.com/HMP. There, you'll be able to support the show, help this thing keep chugging down the road, plus get your pre-show, post-show, and, of course, Dinger Zone, where we talk about, this week, we give a mea culpa, and we talk box office. As Spider-Man. It's all the Dinger Zone, baby. So if you'd like to check that out, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and be amongst those that help this program keep on ticking. And if you can't do that, man, just review us on iTunes. Tell a friend, subscribe on your mama's iPhone. I don't care what you do. Just go ahead and help the numbers get up. You know what I'm saying?
Give us a 5-star review so we can do the first bit we ever had on this show.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't, the dinger, humdinger is like, we haven't said that out loud in so long and,
So long.
I've forgotten how the old Sean used to say it.
Well, he used to do it like this. He used to be like, humdinger. No, hold on. I think I got it. Humdinger. It was like that.
That's close. Oh. Wow.
Yeah. I thought it was like a Barry White thing, like humdinger.
That was yours. We've done several with you doing that. You do. That's more of what we call a Bruce move than an old Sean move. But hey, to each his own, I say. And we'd like to thank all of those owns over at patreon.com/HMP. Legion, boys, we discussed the first two episodes of season 2. Way back when. I'm trying to remember how many episodes ago it was. It was well over 30 episodes or something. It was ridiculous.
In April 2018. I had to look it up.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah.
It's so long ago.
It's been quite some time. But do note that we will go ahead and give all kinds of spoilers and stuff when we start about that. But, hey, third time's the charm here, and we like to see how, dry we can wring this rag. Let's go ahead and do it, shall we? I feel like at some point it's just us trying to torture him to see what he may possibly come up with. Bruce, what do you got?
Strangely, I feel the same way sometimes. Because this is a tough property for Comic Book Connections due to the fact that there are only 2 characters from the comics that are in this show. The rest are original show-only creations. And since this is my 3rd Comic Book Connection for Legion, I have to revisit either the Shadow King or David Haller. So let's spin the wheel of morality and see where it lands. I don't have a sound effect for spinning the wheel of morality, so use your imaginations. All right. In 1991, a group of mutants was joined together into a revamped X Factor. And the original editorial mandate was that Legion should be part of the team. Now, Peter David, the experienced and accomplished writer assigned to the title, said heck to the no to that idea. His rationale was, and I quote, "I don't mind building a story around Legion, but working him into a group, you're really asking for a bit much from the reader. Believing that a group of people will come together to form a team is enough of a suspension of disbelief. And then, oh, by the way, one of them is so nuts he shouldn't be setting foot off Mere Island. That's asking the reader to bend so far he will break." End quote. Now, the infinitely wise Peter David understood something that the characters in the Legion TV show are only starting to slowly realize. That David Haller only plays for one team, and that's Team Legion. Now, Bob Harris was the editor of the new X Factor book and would later go on to be Marvel's editor-in-chief. And he agreed with Peter David, and Legion was 86th like a drunk uncle at a New Year's Eve bash. Now, just in case you're not familiar with Legion's comic book exploits, let me illustrate why he is not a hero. He's not an anti-hero. He's not even an anti-villain. He's rather a destructive force of nature that can be neither contained nor controlled. When David Haller was young, he first expressed his powers by incinerating the minds of a group of terrorists. And yes, they probably had it coming, but he also absorbed all the worst traits of the terrorist leader into his own being and gave himself tainted instincts from the start. After awakening from his second coma, and by the way, folks, always be skeptical of anyone who claims to have been in a coma more than once. I don't know what it is about comas, but if someone has had more than one coma, they just aren't right after.
Oh, it's my third coma this week.
Yeah, like I said, somebody tells you that they've been in more than one coma, start rolling your eyes immediately. But anyway, he decided that the best thing to do was kill Magneto. And again, some people may think that Magneto had it coming, but I persist in my belief that Magneto was right. Well, in his hastily formulated and dangerously negligent plan to kill Magneto, Legion went back in time, killed Professor X instead, and created the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Now, the mutant time traveler Bishop killed Legion, sort of, but even dead Legion still proved a problem for the world because each of his multitude of personalities became a ghost and spread terror and havoc across Israel. Now, sometime later, Legion is discovered alive and trapped in a concrete box. No explanation needed other than comics. But many attempts to heal Legion's fractured minds have occurred. They all seem to end in disaster. It probably doesn't help that most of David's personalities belong to people he murdered then absorbed. Take, for instance, Marcy. Marcy was a little girl who helped David by keeping him company when he came back from limbo. One of the personalities within Legion ended up murdering her, so Marcy became permanently trapped within his mind. Around the time of Avengers vs. X-Men, Legion stepped back, he took a wide-angle look at himself, and he decided to erase himself by existence by never being born. However, Legion's attempt to erase himself from existence apparently only resulted in the creation of a yet new personality known as Lord Trauma. So I guess he couldn't even do that right. Now, the Doom Patrol character, Crazy Jane, is widely considered to be the DC gender-swapped version of Legion, but somehow she seems to pull it off in a more sympathetic and less destructive way. I have read speculation that Legion is a perfect metaphor for the way we feel today, which is fragmented. Sadly, instead of offering hope, redemption, or optimism, all that Legion does is he shows us spiraling ever more downward until we destroy, well, everything. Ba-da-da-da-da-da.
So Bruce has the sunniest outlook on all of this, clearly. So this is one of those weird things, and we were kind of talking about it just a half a second off mic and everything, is that this is very different from how we normally do. Oh, shoot, I almost forgot. Sean, you have our fake trailer for us this week.
I do. My fake trailer this week is from the IMDb user reviews, and it's someone named Samaj95339, and it's a 2-star review, and it's called and it's entitled "I'm Done." Here we go. My son and I enjoyed the first season, albeit it was still a mind bender. We struggled with this episode. It reminded me of the old TV show The Prisoner, which my father and I would watch. I'm sorry. It's just too much this time around. Surreal, it makes no sense. Thank you, Samaj. There is your trailer for this week.
Samaj is not wrong.
The most impressive thing to me is that there are 9,532 other Samajes leaving reviews.
You got to wake up early in the morning to get that internet worm. You know what I mean?
So, can we speak generally first?
Yes.
Yeah, let's speak
I love to speak generally first. I love it.
He's nothing but a general man.
Am I? I even used the. Oh no, I'm not going there. I'll leave that joke for Bruce. So here's the thing.
Hold on, I'm frantically writing it down so I remember it later.
So here's the thing about this show, right? So when this show first came on, it was so wonderful. Like, I mean, I just loved every minute of it. You know, you're trying to figure it out, and then by by like the seventh episode, you're like, okay, I think I get it now. But it was just such a lovely existential, it's showing you all these things that you'd never seen in a superhero property before. Even though, as Bruce said in the comic book connection, I wouldn't exactly call David or / Legion a superhero. In fact, it's in the comic books, he's basically just a tornado. So here's the thing. So here's the thing with this season, is that the thing that I had to go up against this time is that there's also another very surreal television show called Doom Patrol that's on now. And Doom Patrol's storytelling is a whole lot more linear than what we're seeing in Legion. And so while Doom Patrol, it's far more character based than Legion is, they're both existential. They're both dealing with a lot of psychology and human nature itself, and asking big questions. So basically, it's a matter of taste at this point. Do you prefer something that's a little more linear storytelling like Doom Patrol, or do you look for something that's a little more existential like Legion is? But here's the thing, is that Legion still looks so beautiful. It's so well crafted. You could have it on in the background without sound on, and it would just be a complete joy to look over at from time to time, because everything is crafted so well on this show. Now,
and you could look over it any time and it be wildly different than when you looked over, minutes before.
But I mean, you can have the sound on and not know what's going on either on this show, because that's one of the problems with Legion, is that, I don't know how you guys watched this, but for me, I watched it, and I had to sit down and watch basically 7 episodes today. And that is way too much Legion to be watching. This is a show that you eat it in segments. You watch it an episode at a time, a day at a time, or at least hours in between each other. Because this is one of those shows where it doesn't make sense a lot of the time. I don't think it's supposed to make sense a lot of the time. I think that a lot of it is mood. I don't think all of it is makes sense a lot, and I don't think it's supposed to. I think a lot of it is like I said earlier, I think a lot of it is existential, and just how this thing is supposed to make you feel. With that being said, I understand that there are millions of people who will hate this show just by looking at it, and I do understand that. But yeah. I like how different this show is. I like that they have not given up their weirdness, even though now they have a bankable, awesome movie star on their show, and they're not letting go. They're like, we're still going to be nuts. Noah Hawley has not backed down. In fact, he's gotten weirder, because the second season is even weirder than the first season.
Yeah, it feels like it just decides it's going to take that lesson and just turn it up even more than it did the first one.
I think a lot of the time, I could see if somebody was watching the show and think to themselves, well, they're goosing this up, they're making this so weird because they're hiding the fact that they don't have a lot of plot. And that there is something to be said for that. They don't have a ton of plot, but I really do think it's more about a mood than it is about a linear storyline. And so I do get that if you're watching this show and you just want to sit down and not think, this ain't the show for you. I do get it.
Now, I'll say a couple things in the big picture arena. This is something I was cold on after the pilot. And then I came around and was a fan by the end of season 1. And I was still enjoying most of season 2. And then at the end, it really started to lose something for me. And then I went back and rewatched the last 3 episodes this weekend, just kind of refreshing myself. And after the things, I guess, that I've seen, consumed, maybe just the state of mind I have compared to, a year and 3 months ago when I saw it the first time around, I have definitely mellowed out on this. I am not enjoying it. Like even rewatching something that I thought I enjoyed, I didn't enjoy it. And I think part of it is knowing the plot element that I really felt wasn't handled real well at the very end of season 2. It bothered me even more knowing that was on the way. Now, as far as the plot, I think they have a great central, I don't know if you call it plot or just story, but the idea that we're introduced to this protagonist who's actually the one who's going to destroy the world, and people know this, and then how do we deal with that? I think that's pretty interesting. I think that kind of has some echoes of the Umbrella Academy, where there's this apocalypse. We're not quite sure what happened, but we know we got to stop it. And, we have this little adventure. Turns out one of the members of the Umbrella Academy is responsible for it. I don't want to spoil too much there, because I don't know that everybody who's listening to this is already seen the Umbrella Academy, so I don't want to spoil too much. But, that's a concept that works pretty good in surreal comic books. Grant Morrison, Gerard Way, those are a couple of people you think of with surreal comic books. Chris Claremont, not necessarily one of those people you think of with surreal comic books. So they're adapting something pretty far from where it started.
But then when you add Bill Sienkiewicz's art in there, that's the crazy element that you're looking for there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, never trust a guy with a Kramer hairdo, including Kramer. But anyway, the thing is, they had enough central plot with us understanding that he is the threat, and that he is the unable to acknowledge his own evil in a way that is interesting. But then they just have him. It's so weird, there's like something, I think it's been attributed to Stalin. I don't know if it's an actual quote or not, but I've heard it attributed to Stalin that you kill one person, it's a tragedy. You kill 1 million people, it's a statistic. The thing is, knowing that the villain is going to destroy the world makes him despicable, but not as despicable as a single act that we'll have to talk about as we unwrap where this show goes. But it's that single act that I question if that was a smart thing to include here and how they're going to deal with that in season 3. But I really have changed my opinion now twice on this show, where I wasn't real big on it, then I was actually really digging it, and then I've gone back around to not being real big on it again. And
what
part
about
of that,
you, Adam?
Yeah.
I love everything about this show. Sean is absolutely right. I don't know that there can be a lot of middle ground fandom for this show, because it is something that you either have to whole hog give into and just kind of go, hey, this is what we're doing, we're going along for the ride, or you don't. Because I just can't see anybody passively watching this. It's like, oh, I'm doing a couple other things and I'll kind of glance up, and like, no, this is a show that demands your attention, and unless you just don't want to know, because like you want to go along with, like you said, kind of the vibe run of it, which you most certainly can. I mean, it's a beautiful looking show. The sound is, sound design on this thing is fantastic as well. And I just love a show that just has the guts to go, we're not going to do anything like anyone else does. It just doesn't matter to us. We don't care about doing traditional television. And this is a show from people done by people that clearly know what they're doing and have just a mastery of their skill set in so many different ways. And to see all of that stuff just laid out in a weekly show on FX is kind of astounding that they've gotten away with it for as long as they have. Because if you look at it on paper and just try to sell this to regular people, they're not going to watch this. It's insane.
Yeah.
How did they manage to assemble this cast? Because this is a cast that is better than you might expect for a show that has the reach that this one has, which, ratings aren't super for it. It's on a less than top line cable channel. How did they assemble this cast for this show?
Noah Hawley. That's how.
Yeah. And
because, I mean,
they
it's
weren't
not every
the
day you
biggest
get a Concorde, one of the Flight of the Concorde guys in your show.
You're not wrong. And that Aubrey Plaza, she doesn't come cheap either. But it's the showrunner, because that guy has how many shows? 3 shows in production right now. I mean, people just want to work for people who are always working because they want to keep working. And the thing about this show too is that there are people who hear the premise that, like, if you were to explain this show to someone by saying this, it's like it's like Twin Peaks but superheroes. You know, like that would appeal to certain people.
Right, and I'll be honest with you. To me, this whole series, and I'm gonna get some hate mail for it, but this was like, I liken this show to what if David Lynch had, real true talent. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think David Lynch was a moment in time. I'll just put it that way.
But like, I watched this and I go like, this is what David Lynch could do if David Lynch had the talent that David Lynch believes he has.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah, I'm not going to fight with you over that. I'm not a huge Lynch fan. I used to think I was. It's the weird thing. I think he had a lot of us.
It's a hipster thing. Yeah.
When we were younger, he had a lot of us tricked into thinking it was good.
You think it is? Yeah.
The two art school kids are the ones who have to buck up against that. The guy who went to medical school probably isn't going to have he's not going to have a whole lot to say to you about David Lynch.
Sure.
But the two guys who went to art school are probably going to be like, oh yeah, and I got a very strong opinion on David Lynch. So there you go. But let's go backwards for a second. So you have, they did something very, very savvy, which is that they picked up their lead before he became a gigantic movie star that can open, a Disney movie.
Yeah.
And, Dan Stevens, he is one of those guys too, who he can be anyone. And there's something about him where I would not at all be surprised if he decides, you know what, I'm going to do what the giant movie stars do, or I'm going to do one giant movie, then I'm going to do a little one, and then I'm going to do a giant one and do a little one, because like this one's for them, this one's for me, like one of those, because he can do both clearly, and he can do them well, and he can change his accent on a dime. And I notice none of his British accent when he's American.
No, he's it's one of those big ones, and you see it so much so, like you said, when we get to a little later in this season, where there's 3 of him on screen, and they all have American accents, but they're all different American accents.
Well, there's not 3, man. I mean, because there's that one episode where you're watching all the different timelines.
Well, yeah, I just meant in the same thing.
Oh,
but you're right. All the different timelines, that goes even bigger and better and beyond even. You're right. And
I mean, the guy's playing 10 different people, and each one of them is so vastly different than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a matter of just having a different accent. It's so he's just such a dynamic actor. And I don't know how you pick that up from an audition. My guess is that they probably are like, oh, you know what? He's classically trained. I haven't done any of the research on him. I'm guessing that he's classically trained. He's, you know what? I'm going to look that up as you guys continue talking about Legion season 2.
He studied English literature at Emmanuel College in Cambridge.
I thought he went to University of Phoenix.
All of those words say yes. I'm smarter than all of you, or at least he's got a nice sweater.
He was really good in The Man Who Invented Christmas.
You're right. He's just an up-and-coming guy, and I think once more people really start to kind of see what he's capable of, and this show is a great example of the wildness, because, and honestly, that's the same goes for really almost everybody on this show, is sometimes you have to play a wildly different character than what you've been playing. I mean, I couldn't even try to wrap my head around how much different information that you got to have in your head as Aubrey Plaza's character does, and who she is at any particular moment.
There's so much interesting about her character too, and the story behind her character from season 1. I don't know if it's true or not, but I like to believe that it is that it was written for a male to be playing that role. Lenny was a male character, and when they cast her, they just kept all of the script exactly the same, and it kind of makes sense if you watch it through that sort of filter, and then start to imagine, what is the story with Lenny here. She's one of my more enjoyable parts of this show. Actually, I like her a lot in this show, and I don't know that I'm necessarily like a big time Aubrey Plaza fan either. I think it's mainly this show that I like her for.
Oh, I'm a big enough fan for the both of us.
Big fan over here. So
I'll toe that rope for you.
More than make up for it.
I saw that Child's Play movie, and I mean, she was fine in it, but I didn't think she stood out there. Has she been in other movies?
Listen,
She
the
is.
movie itself is terrible, but her acting in Dirty Grandpa is fantastic.
She's in Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates.
That's not a bad movie. That's a fun enough flick. I enjoyed it.
The weird flip around where the two ladies are the funny ones in the movie and the guys play the straight men.
It was good. That was good. What was the other? There's a couple. But yeah, she's been in a ton of stuff, and big fan.
Cool. Good. I like her in this, so I'm sure I would like her in other stuff. Maybe
She's in Parks and Rec, and she steals the show all the time.
I need to watch that show. I hear a lot of good things about Parks and Rec.
You've not seen Parks and Rec?
But he said that the first thing that came to his mind was the remake of Child's Play. So I just imagine that he didn't.
It's true.
I haven't
Never seen
seen Parks and Rec, and a big reason is I don't like Ron Swanson memes.
Oh, first of all, that's some of the best
Oh.
stuff in the world. And listen, you're missing out on, honest to goodness, just one of the great shows. It's so good. You would love it.
Good. I'll go
I
watch
can't
it all.
believe
how many seasons are there? I'll watch it all tonight.
17.
Oh boy, I got a long night.
I never thought like in the year 2019 I'd be having to sell people on Parks and Rec. I'm like, you heard this thing, Parks and Rec? No, give me a sizzle reel. What do you got?
If you remember last week, I'm the guy who hadn't seen much Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I have seen Film 43. So that just sets our perspective.
That is so amazing. That is amazing.
But I have seen every episode of Seinfeld multiple times, so I got that going for me.
I'm there with you on that one.
Look, if you can get past the episode, not past. If you get to the episode where they can't make fun of Jerry, it's in the first season. If you get to that episode and you do not laugh hysterically of the episode that they can't make fun of Jerry, then stop watching, because that is, to me, one of the funniest moments in television I've ever seen.
I'll have to be sure and make that on the top of my to-do list.
Please.
Hang up
Now,
your ads.
The Loudermilks, man. I like some of these original characters, and at first one of the things I had to adjust to was understanding, like, what is the reason for this show? What's going on here? What are the rules? I mean, first off, 80% of what makes Legion interesting from the comics is that he's Professor X's son. Okay, at least to me. And here it's like we're in a world where there are no X-Men, essentially. Like I still am not certain. I don't know if it's real clear. I mean, they did mention his father was a powerful psychic, but I still don't know, was it Professor X, or is this totally like all these? There are literally, and I'm not exaggerating here, probably 7,000 mutant characters to choose from in the comics, and yet they have to create entirely new ones for every character other than Legion and Shadow King in this show. So I had to kind of understand, like, why are they doing that when there's so many out there that are kind of the same? And I imagine there's some kind of behind the scenes agreement, but it also lets Holly do what Holly wants to do, I suppose. But I do like the Loudermilks. Out of these new people they introduce us to, there's something just really cool and bizarre and interesting, and I just like the Loudermilks, Carrie with a C and Carrie with a K. You know, the two people that used to be one person, and like the lady's the tough one that protects the cowardly male aspect of the personality. I love that character combination, and I like that actress that plays the female incarnation of Carrie Loudermilk.
And I like the male version, the Bill Irwin played character.
Yeah.
That dude has been on television and in movies for a million years.
Yes.
And first time I ever saw him was in the Bobby McFerrin video.
And I also got to say, I think it's awesome. And man, let me make sure that I get the actress's name right, because she deserves to have her name right. I think it's awesome that there's a comic book character named Carrie Loudermilk. Well, a superhero character, not a comic book. It's on a show. But the mutant character is named Carrie Loudermilk, but the real human is named Amber Midthunder. Because if you gave me those two names, I would think Amber Midthunder was the comic book character and not the Loudermilk.
Very true. I cannot argue with that. Absolutely not.
But
So we have a bunch of characters that we haven't gotten to. There's some characters, I will be quite honest, I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing this year half the time. The Hamish Linklater character, Clark with the half burned off face.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me figure out what that guy's doing in the plots this year. He seems like he's working on the side of angels, but sometimes he's taking people out who are on the good side of things. Like I cannot for the life of me figure out where he stands this year.
Was there ever any explanation for the giant like bathtub plug in the middle of the desert?
No.
Something I can
like
remember.
That's another one that, sometimes I think we're being a little too harsh when we say a show is weird for weirdness sake. A lot of the things on the show I can go with, like the guy who has a wicker basket for a head and a Japanese name. I can understand that the giant tuning fork is their MacGuffin to drive the plot near the end, but I just can't understand the gigantic bathtub drain in the desert.
Or how about the singing mouse?
That's cool. I like mice.
Though it's very cool, but it never comes up again.
They're just like, yep, that was just a mouse who was singing. How about you just shut up and watch the show?
And I also think something that tortures me, the way that I watch these projects, specifically the way I watch them when I know we're going to review them on the show versus just watching something to be watching it. But I'm always looking for comic book Easter eggs, and there just aren't any. And I think that tortures me a little bit too.
Sure.
I did see one awesome, I don't think you call it an Easter egg. It's just out there and it is what it is. But I saw one awesome moment that was referred back to the comic books. I think it was episode 9 of 11. There are only 11 this second season. So yeah, it was episode 9, I believe. But we do see a comic book accurate Legion, with the hairdo and everything.
Yeah.
We see Dan Stevens with the hairdo watching a crystal ball, and I imagine that is the Marvel 616 Legion watching all this stuff go on either in his imagination or in an alternate reality he's created. Like, I'm tying this back to the comics, and that's why absolutely nothing is from the comics, because the 616 Legion is creating this new universe thinking he can do better here, and he's still ruining everything.
I have to say that was my favorite episode of this season. The alternate timelines, the different dimensions of where people are, and just one, to see the acting just juggernaut of our lead actor. I think he's incredible, and just to see where he would be in another world with different circumstances. To me, it was just a lot of fun.
And something that was along the lines of weird for weirdness sake that it was not only unnecessary, it was downright bothersome to me. In episode 11 of season 2, the title of that episode is Chapter 19, and the title card says Chapter 10. So it's episode 11. The title of the episode's Chapter 19, and they throw up a title card that says Chapter 10, which makes no sense to me at all. And it actually downright bothers me.
Here's the good thing, though, without knowing anything at all about season 3. And I know that we're halfway through the season of season 3, and so I would guess that it's probably more of this back and forth with David, and they're probably gonna have to take him down. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Well, that's absolutely what they have to do. That's what they're setting it up, but they're also setting it up that it's impossible to take him down. Right. There's a 3-year time jump in the last episode where we see that the guy from Flight of the Conchords and Gene Smart have had to live in the astral plane because something wasn't so good in the past 3 years.
Jermaine.
Yeah,
Jermaine Clement.
They say he destroyed everything. Well, not everything exactly. I mean, it's all still there. What the heck am I supposed to do with that information for the 3-year time jump? He destroyed everything. Well, not really everything. It's all still there. But to
get to my point here, which is that if there was ever a TV show that was ever going to have Sauron on it, it would be this show. And that's got to put a smile on your face, Bruce.
Oh, that will put a smile on my face. That's true. I had some trouble remembering some of it because I didn't watch all of it again. I just went back and recapped the final 3 episodes to kind of refresh my memory on how it wound up, because I figured we'd focus mostly on the end of the story from season 2.
Sure.
But what I can't remember is exactly, I'm pretty sure I saw Lenny sort of coming around and going back to David's side when he I'm not sure what Lenny's preferred pronoun is, but Aubrey Plaza's character was sort of a persona non grata by the end of season 1 and a good part of season 2. I do find it interesting to see her kind of going back down the self-destructive road that Lenny has tread before, and then sort of deciding to come around and help David, where you think, okay, Lenny's maybe taking a hero turn, but it's also the same time that David's taking the villain turn. So I guess Lenny's still on the wrong side. I don't know.
Well, what we're gathering is that man, I am all over the place with speaking tonight. I'm sorry. So here's the deal with Lenny is that the thing that I opened the show with tonight, you're the song that they play outside a hostage crisis, that thing, that is literally the reason why the Shadow King brings Lenny back into the human world, is to kind of make David jumbled and not be able to think straight, because she's constantly talking and chattering in his ear, so he can't concentrate very often. And so that is why she comes back. She then, through dreams that were either implanted there from David, or she realizes it herself, and I can't really figure out which it is, that she needs to help David, because David ultimately is her friend. And so that's where we end up by the end of the season, is that she is there to help David succeed.
Yeah, she's there to be David's. I think you could almost put her into henchman category there by the final episode.
Yeah,
I mean, she's firing the sniper rifle with some amazing precision at some key moments.
The most unbelievable precision in all of history of shooting. It's great. I love
Especially considering, Legion has the power within him to not need her to make those shots per se.
Very true. Also,
that's also what makes the show kind of interesting. I do like the giant tuning fork. I like the fact that when you're building androids from scratch, and you can build an android to look very human and lifelike, you still have them look like women with mustaches. I like that idea. And the fact you can make them look great, but their voices still sound awful.
It's like those characters are just fantastic amalgamations that just like everything about you, like your brain just can't quite comprehend what, like, because they've made it look ugly and pretty at the same time, but then there's all kinds of, it's like they made that in the most awkward, it just makes you feel absolutely awkward just looking at it.
You know what they remind me of also is the Robert Palmer videos.
Yes.
Except there's something off-putting about them, because there's something off-putting about those women also.
Those in the original, Robert Palmer videos and stuff. Yeah, those women are creepy in that too.
Right.
They just don't have mustaches and aren't like ugly face makeup too.
I'm kind of bummed out actually that they didn't have, like, when they have that big dance scene, and well, not dancing, but sing off.
Yeah.
When they didn't have some Robert Palmer thing happening.
Should have been some inflatable guitars or something, Yeah. Missed opportunity. Robert Palmer wasn't game.
Now, I lose track a little bit of Sid's thought process here, too, because Sid is in this hole in the ground. There's a Minotaur trying to kill people. One of the Loudermilks is trying to kill the Minotaur. But Jean Smart and Sid are having this back and forth about the true nature of David. And Sid is very, very much like pro David until she finally has the realization that David is awful. Can you guys help sort that out? Because I feel like this is something where so much is going on that's just abstract and surreal that sometimes I'm missing things of material value because I didn't quite catch all the details in that character turn. And I know she's also watching David with the future version of herself, and Jean Smart's asking her if she's jealous, and she's like, why should I be jealous? That's me. But at some point she starts to realize some of the bad things that's going on with David.
Right. So
the show's weird, you see.
Because let's be honest, Adam did not follow any of that.
I was trying, man. I was like, okay, that's that character.
So here we go, right? So the when it really starts to poke its head up, there might be something wrong with David, is when Sydney is talking to Jean Smart's character.
Yeah.
And basically what Jean Smart is telling her in that scene is you have to figure out that what you feel emotionally from him and what your eyes are telling you are giving you two different things. So you have to basically figure out if you are you can still be in love with someone and realize that they're a monster. That's kind of what she's saying.
Yeah.
However, because there is either a thing from either the Shadow King or from David implanted into her head that is constantly screwing with what her version of reality is, of what's happening with her own reality. And so she has to come to the decision, which she ultimately does, that David is actually the bad guy during this season, at least.
I think she's come to the right decision.
For sure.
One thing that's awesome for me, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You don't have to qualify it in any way. One thing that is a 100% victory on the Bruce Leslie victory scale is the psychic battle that plays out with cartoons. Yes. And not like it looks like cell animated cartoons, even though I don't know that people still do that sort of thing. I love the animated psychic battle. That's wonderful. That's like something out of Sandman.
Yeah, those cool wireframe animation. That's really cool looking.
I mean, just imagine though, that's your first episode of this show. You just go, I've been hearing this thing. People have been talking about Legion, and in the first 5 minutes that's happening. What's your thought process got to be?
Oh, I couldn't wait to see more. I would be disappointed when that wasn't what happened every episode.
This doesn't happen.
Hey, that
every
looks like
week?
the old Star Wars game. I'm in.
Yeah, I was all for that, but. That was an unqualified victory there. That was 100% win, all right there. And David defeats the Shadow King, and then Sydney finally confronts him. He gets trapped by the Loudermilk. See him doing some things that open their eyes to the fact that he's a monster too, and they manage to trap him in some kind of psychic bulb, and Sydney has a confrontation, and We tend to tread lightly with certain issues on this show, but I guess the people listening to this episode can handle a quote directly from the show. But Sydney says, "You drugged me and then had sex with me." That's the part that was getting to me. He can destroy. It's like the thing from comic books. Jean Grey can devour an entire solar system and we'll forgive her. Hank Pym slaps his wife and he's persona non grata forever.
That's true.
And that is one of those things that that just ruins the character for viewers forever, that happened. And then also, is she just referring to his mental tampering as drugging her, or did I miss him literally slipping her drugs? That kind of came out of the blue on me, and maybe I'm just not a good viewer, but that really just unraveled my whole excitement for anything in season 3. That scene right there.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I did not track that. I like you. It came out of nowhere, the drugging part to me, but so I just figured that through mental ability is what she was talking about, but maybe not.
And choosing those words specifically in our current environment just absolutely puts Legion in irredeemable category. I mean, I don't know what in the heck they can do in season 3 other than just depict him as being the most evil of all evils. And what's the fun in that without it being a complicated character anymore?
Yeah, exactly. Although I do have to say, if they wanted to put a little of shine, if they want to take a little bit of the shine down from that, they could have just said, and then you totally Cosby'd me.
It's about the other thing. No, but and here's the thing though, and I'm not 1,000%. I mean, more than likely he's a bad guy, but the entire show to me just feels like the producer, who is usually one of the 2 writers of just about every single show, is working some stuff out in clearly his own, in his maybe his life, in his head, something.
You should see his other shows, sir.
I should.
I haven't. So maybe did he do any Parks and Rec? Because I have that on my to watch schedule.
Well, just the episode where they can't say anything bad to Jerry. But he's on Hannibal. He's the showrunner on Hannibal, which is
that about the Punic Wars?
Say what?
Is that about the wars?
No, it's the serial killer, Hannibal the Cannibal.
The brain.
Oh,
guy.
okay. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general.
What did you just say? Hannibal's last name?
Yeah, Barca.
Barca.
Yeah,
It's pronounced Burris. Hannibal Burris. You guys are doing it wrong.
Didn't know. I didn't know that Hannibal had a last name. There we go. I just learned something today.
Oh, that's so you can tell the difference between he and Burris and Lecter.
and that show is really, really working out some stuff. Fargo season 2 is one of the most bananas things you'll ever see in your life. And now you've got this. So he's probably the most normal guy in the world because he's working everything out.
Because
through
Lord
his TV
knows
shows.
it is all on screen for everything. Because like you know what he thinks about technology and human interaction, and so much of it is on display. I love the John Hamm documentary footage and all that kind of stuff that's going on. God, but the wild thing is, as crazy and different as that is, it's always, even before we kind of figured out more or less what those are from, it always felt at home here.
And what's weird too, I just decided to look him up, and I guess he got his big break in the Emily Deschanel comedy drama, crime drama, Bones, of all the places to start. I just picture him as one of those guys who was probably so miserable doing that and knew he just had to do it until he could do what he wanted to do.
Here's what,
because that seems really different from what he does now.
That show was on the air forever. Those people made money.
Yeah. I'm not denying that, but it is I would imagine that thematically it's not very similar to Fargo or Legion.
Probably. No. Well, little different from what I've seen. But that's, to me, I don't know, because that I don't know that I take. To me, it's a comic book first and foremost. You know what I mean? And therefore, in especially in as wild and crazy and mentally trippy, body switching, this, that, and the other, as we've been doing, and not, trying to look behind every corner, I don't trust anything that anybody says. So, like, to me, it seems that he's obviously a bad guy, but I mean, that again, things in this could definitely change. I don't know, but I'm willing to go.
No, man, not when you hit the third rail like that. After you hit that third rail, you aren't coming back from that. That is not a thing that they're going to be able to bring this character back from. They're taking him down. I just talked myself into it.
But what if it just didn't happen? I'm like I said, we don't even remember it happening. I mean, not to say that it didn't, but we don't know that it did.
Here's the only thing I can see for the third season, and we will, for better or worse, be reviewing that third season soon. And there's the part of me that still wants to cling, like you said, to the idea this is a comic book show, and I'm looking for something for a comic book connection. But the legacy storyline where Legion realizes that the world would be better without him and uses his powers to ensure he himself is not born, I think that's where season 3 is going to have to take us, because he's already slapped Janet Van Dyne now. There's no happy ending for this character.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, listen, I'll just be entertained however they decide to end it up, because frankly, whatever they're doing, it's worked for me so far.
And one of the coolest Easter eggs, the coolest Easter egg, once again, maybe I'm misusing that term. The coolest scene that relates to the broader comic book universe is that
Sauron.
Scene. Well, yeah, the scene of him in the 616 looking at the crystal ball watching this show. That's the coolest. But the second coolest is the fact that the kid who's eating the cereal in Deadpool 2 at the mutant school or whatever is the same kid who plays a very young David Haller in this show. So in universe, you could argue that was a young David Haller in that mutant school that Deadpool talks to in Deadpool 2. Get out of
here. I had no idea.
Yeah, the actor's name is Luke Ressler. Roessler, and you can look it up. And he plays young David Haller, and credited as serial kid in Deadpool 2. And they've kind of said, yeah, that's the same guy. Like that is young David there.
Huh.
So that's cool for me.
He's also in the absolutely terrible No One Should Ever See a Riverdale show.
Oh, yeah, boy, that's still going on. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, because there's a certain segment of the population who thinks it's great. They're wrong. One of them lives in my house, so yeah,
and it's not me.
No. I I'm guessing that it's your teenage daughter.
Yes, guessed
Nope,
correctly.
Chris Elvins is now living in the basement.
But the girl's really a big Jughead fan. She actually wore official Jughead hat merchandise when we were in Ireland. She traveled Ireland with her Jughead beanie on.
Wow.
Could you imagine if, 30 years ago you wore a Jughead beanie and the ever-living snot that'd be kicked out of you?
Man, I couldn't even wear a Star Wars T-shirt in high school for fear that I would get wailed on.
I bought her a Sweet Life with Zach and Cody T-shirt. She won't wear that, but she'll wear the Jughead hat.
It's like, what are you talking?
What's her problem?
Some kids are just a little bit, their parents didn't bring them up right, apparently.
And he's also on Arrow. This kid is in every crappy property.
Yeah, she told me she wanted a Jughead beanie. When I got her the authentic Golden Age version, she shook her head and went to Hot Topic and got the new one.
I'll show you. All right. Now, before we get down to our final review here and everything, we do have to ask ourselves one of the most important questions anyone could ever ask themselves, and that is, how does this television show relate to one Sylvester Stallone?
Thanks, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
All right.
Steve Blackman is a writer on Legion. He also wrote for the Adam Portrais' favorite Netflix series, The Umbrella Academy. He's also writing on Altered Carbon, Fargo, and a show that has saved my butt more than my favorite pair of jeans, the TV show Las Vegas, which boasts a guest starring role by the man who turned down both the Eddie Murphy role in Beverly Hills Cop and the Bruce Willis role in Die Hard, Sylvester Stallone. Steve Blackman's been nominated for an Emmy for Fargo, the TV series, and as a kid, he was an actor on a movie called Isaac Littlefeathers. I did some digging into this, and it's about a man who has to struggle with the fact that people are racist and horrible, and he's part Native American, which bums me out because I wanted it to be a movie about a handicapped pigeon who learns that just because he has oddly shaped feathers doesn't mean he can't be a productive member of society.
Thanks, pigeon.
He's the only one that can slide down the pipe that will close the gate and keep the cat out of their hidden pigeon wonderland. But Steve Blackman got his start on a TV show that I'm not sure ever existed. It was called The Associates. It stars no one you've ever heard of. It is listed on IMDb, but there's no show description. And so judging by context clues, I'm going to say it's probably a Canadian television show, which means I want to see it because I find Canadian television charming. It lasted from 2001 all the way to 2002. And not only was Steve Blackman a writer on The Associates, he was also one of the co-creators, which is very cool. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a new script to write that's going to be called Frankie Littlefeathers, and I'm not going to tell you what it's about because I don't want anyone to steal my great ideas. Thank you. I'm Sean Koufax. Thank you.
So I got to make sure to, what they say, write it to yourself in a letter or some sort of nonsense.
Yeah, that doesn't work. You actually have to go through the Writers Guild of America to get that work. At least that's what my friends tell me. I wouldn't know. I'm in insurance.
These things, they happen around, listen, somebody puts 1 month, they just go and get a copy of Daily Variety and put it in there. You'll start to pick up stuff. It just happens. So it's no one faults you, buddy.
Exactly.
Now, what we do want to put some fault on is all of our heads here as we go to review this season. Bruce, where does Legion Season 2 fall on the Robin rating system for you, sir?
I'm going to repeat myself here because I've already pretty much said what I have to say here, and that's that I was slow to come around on this series. I did come around by the second half of Season 1, but now, with a little bit of time, I've swung back closer to my original position of not being a big fan. I think something that Sean pointed out is very true, that it is in no small part due to Doom Patrol. Having watched Doom Patrol makes this seem entirely different on rewatch than it did the first time around. It was easier for me to enjoy this show when there was no Doom Patrol, which the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking Doom Patrol kind of did this and did it better. And you know what? Grant Morrison maybe was a better comic book writer, even though I have fallen out of love with him, than Chris Claremont. But anyhow, I think that there's a sensibility in Doom Patrol that's lacking here. I I can't understand it because I really like Dan Stevens. I really like Gene Smart. I really like Aubrey Plaza. Loved her in Parks and Rec. I really like Jermaine Clement. I really like Amber Midthunder. All these ingredients are wonderful, but the final product leaves me a little disappointed. Hard for me to bring much enthusiasm into season 3. The sexual assault storyline is very jarring to me. I'm not sure why. Like in Preacher Comics, we have something similar to that with Cassidy, and I can go with it. It's not so jarring, but it's hard for me here. I don't know why I am where I am, but that's where I am, and I'm giving it a kind of a meh version of a Damian Wayne.
All righty. Sean, what do you got?
This is going to seem too high-minded and too flowery, but that's the show that we have here. I think that what these show creators are going for with Legion, the TV series, is sort of a Terrence Malick type of movie, where you're not really following this for plot beat by beat, because that's not what they're making. They're making mood. They're making like sort of a like emotion more than anything else. And so that's what this show is. I love everything about the art department on this show. I think they're amazing. If they do not get nominated this year, then something is wrong. People are watching the wrong show.
They should win all the tech awards. Their tech stuff is unbelievable.
It is unreal how good everything looks on this show. So there's that. I think that the performances are incredible. I think the writing is so weird. I think it is so weird that at times it's really hard, especially if you're sitting down to watch, 6 hours of it. It's a little much.
Yeah.
But I do love it. I still really like the show. I like it a lot. So for me, this is a Jason Todd, or not Jason Todd, a Tim Drake for me. This is a Tim Drake for me, this show. And I don't know how I'm going to behave about the third season, because when you touch that third rail about what happens at the end of this season, I don't think there's any coming back from that. They've got to take him down, and they're going to have to take him down hard.
And that's fine. And listen, if that's the story that we're looking to tell, let's tell that story, and let's bring it down in a blaze of glory. I mean, because rightfully so. I love this show. I think everything about it is awesome. I too had to stream pretty much all the episodes in a row here. But you know what? I love doing that when, Jessica Jones was like pulling teeth for me. This was like, yes, please let me have another one. And it's a heck of a time doing it, watching it. It's all great. I love the cinematography on this show. And like you can tell there are a couple of moments because the aspect ratios shift all the time,
Right.
And one of them, when they're out there and they have the little booth in the, kind of desert area there, those are absolutely have to be, anamorphic widescreen lenses that they're using here because of the way that things shape out and how the light hits the, inside of the lens and makes the little rings and whatnot.
Right.
If that was not actually shot like that, their post department deserves, some sort of special effect, Oscar or Emmy for that. But I think they're actually just shooting stuff with even, just they're experimenting. They're doing wild and crazy stuff, and it certainly looks like it. And there's no other show that seems to have the guts to go out and just do what these guys are doing, wild and crazy every single week. I can't believe this is on, kind of a network show.
Have either of you ever seen the documentary Dogtown and Z Boys?
I've heard about it. I've heard a lot of good things, but I've never seen it. No.
It's a really great documentary, and it's made by the adult version of one of the skateboarding kids, and it's basically the Lords of Dogtown is the fictionalized version of the documentary.
Good movie in its own right, I think.
Well, the Dogtown and Z Boys, the way that it's put together, it feels like what they're doing. Like, it really feels like Legion is doing a lot of what they did also, because it feels like when you're watching it, it's like taped together and spliced, and it's dirty and it's weird looking, and like they change, lenses, they change film stock, they change lighting design, they do all of that stuff just all to keep you disoriented as you're watching the show. And I think that a lot of that was taken from Dogtown and Z-Boys. It's one of my favorite documentaries, although I have the caveat of I have not seen that documentary in probably 10 years.
But and it's the thing that is like they don't, and none of it is like, oh, we did it because we had to or anything. All of this is done in such a smart, artistic way for artistic reasons. I would love to hear some sort of like, DVD commentary or a pop-up video style thing going like, hey, here's what's going on, and pointing out all of the stuff, because it just from a story standpoint, from a production standpoint, there is so much to go on here that is rich. And honestly, I think between like this show and Preacher, the last 5 years, and I'll count, the year before this and year after, is a real golden age for comic book television, because we've had some pretty amazing stuff, some so-so stuff, but man, some of the things that we have had are pretty wild and crazy. And I just gotta say, we're in a really cool time right here, and I'm digging it.
Me too.
So that is it. Did I say? No, I didn't. This is a Dick Grayson for me. I love it. I love it.
Whoa.
It's a good show.
Okay. Wow. We really covered. We smeared the paint on this one.
We like to give people options and let them know what's out there. And now everybody's going, maybe I should watch that thing. I don't really know. All right. I think we talked about what we're doing next week, but I didn't put it down in the calendar properly. So we'll figure that out. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I just want to cede my time to talk about this really cool movie franchise called Wolf Warrior. Now, the first Wolf Warrior movie made $89 million worldwide at the box office. $89 million. That's it. The sequel, Wolf Warrior 2, made $870 million at the box office. So like a factor of 10. $10 were spent for every dollar spent on Wolf Warrior to see Wolf Warrior 2. And the secret sauce, what does Wolf Warrior 2 have that Wolf Warrior didn't have? That, my friends, is Frank Grillo. Frank Grillo is worth $780 million. So now you know that.
Would have made a great Punisher. Sean?
When is that Crossbones movie coming out? Me wonders.
It'll make at least $780 million.
Man, listen, when you are pulling those numbers, I don't care where you're from. People are going to start noticing you.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Preacher Podcast. It is coming up hot. So check out what is going on over there, because we are going to be going into the last season, which is season 4 this year. And they got a lot to prove to me, because I am becoming less and less of a fan of that TV show as time marches on.
We shall see, and we'll check on out about that and some other projects that are coming up soon as well. Like I said, I am not sure what we're doing next week, but you know how you would find that out. Head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Join up there today. Or if you just, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for Sean Koufax, Bruce Leslie. I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
Bye, Frank Grillo.
With your feet on